All right. Thanks, Andrew. And thanks for everybody that has joined us for this FlyPaper Sherlock session of the FlyPaper Summit. To kick things off, I'm going to if I can get the slide to move, there we go. We're going to just go over a quick agenda for this session. We're going to do a quick Sherlock introduction. It's not going to be a demo, it's just going to be a quick overview of what problems that Sherlock is trying to address and what features we have there. And then we're going to move on to a customer story about Sherlock. And I'm happy to have Pablo Medina, who's a senior VDC manager at McCarthy Building Companies, here with us. So he's going to talk a little bit about his experience using Sherlock on his projects. And then we're going to do a dive into what the near-term roadmap looks like for Sherlock. And then we're going to close this session out with a period of questions and answers. So I encourage you throughout this session to use the either the chat or the questions portion of this GoToWebinar application. You can throw your questions in there. Andrew will be monitoring those things throughout the session, and then he'll bring those questions up to me during the question and answer period. So with that, I'll kick things off with our quick introduction to Sherlock for those of you that are on this that may not know what Sherlock is. So Sherlock has three main features. We have Distill, which is our automated clash grouping algorithm, Heat Map, which is our model analysis tool, and Orient, which is just a very simple way to point out a location to someone in a coordination model. So I'll start with Distill. This is our lightning fast clash grouping algorithm. So to tell you what the problem it's trying to solve is as people, we can look at this picture and we can identify that there's two pipes going through a duct here, and that's one problem that we need to solve. But when Navisworks looks at this, it identifies problems or issues as a computer would do it. So it identifies one issue for the pipe running through the duct, a second issue for the pipe running through the insulation of that duct, a third for one of the transition pieces of that duct, a fourth for another transition piece of that duct, and then you multiply that by 2 for both of those pipes, and you end up with 8 clashes that Navisworks produces in this area. Now, there aren't really 8 things that need to be fixed in this area. There's only one. We need to address the fact that these pipes are going through this ductwork. So what Distill does is it will, in a matter of milliseconds, analyze all the clashes in all of your clash tests and group them together so that a group represents a single issue that needs to be resolved. This is multiplied over your entire model. So your model that may have 10,000 clashes in it, it only has really maybe around 3,000 individual things that need to be fixed. So Distill will analyze the entire model and determine those 3,000 things for you in a matter of milliseconds. The second portion of Sherlock is what we call Heat Map, and we consider it our model analysis tool. So when a coordinator is looking at their model with all of the different trades that are in there, and they've got their clash tests all set up inside of Navisworks, it is not very straightforward to determine exactly where the worst areas are in that model. And by worst areas, what I mean are the areas that have the most trades that are clashing in that area, as well as the most clashes that are clashing that exist in that area. So that's going to represent the areas that are going to take the most coordination for someone to get through. Now, traditionally, this kind of analysis of figuring out where the worst areas are is done by just flying around the model, visually checking things, maybe turning on some of the dim other features in Navisworks to try to just kind of visually figure out where are these bad areas. What heat map does is it's a one-click operation that will identify via an algorithm the 10 worst areas in that model so that you can know those things up front in coordination rather than kind of stumbling across them as you're going through coordination. It identifies those 10 areas, which you can see on the image on the left, and then on the right, it also will produce clash tests for you so that you can use the full tools that Navisworks provides, the dim other features and things like that, to be able to really dive into, all right, what really is clashing in each one of these hotspots that Sherlock has produced for you. And then the third main feature of Sherlock is what we call Orient, or the Can You Zoom Out tool, or the Where Are We tool. So what Orient does is when you're in a coordination meeting, and say we're in this location on this screenshot here, undoubtedly there's going to be a few detailers or other people in the room that don't necessarily know exactly where we are when we're in the model like this. Most of the time, only the person that's driving the Navisworks model really understands exactly where they are in it. So when someone asks, can you zoom out, or where are we, Orient is a super simple tool for pointing that out to that person. Now, without Orient, this kind of video shows what that process looks like. So this is without Orient. When someone asks, where are you, coordinator will go through a process of zooming out, orientating the model, trying to point out that location to whoever asked the question. We'll talk about grid lines and things like that, and then we'll zoom back in and try to get back to where we were. And all of that time was just spent to just orient everyone to the area that we really wanted to talk about. So it's a lot of time wasted that Orient can automate for us. So what Orient does is you can click on any piece of this model and click Show and Plan, and it will immediately kick Navisworks into a floor plan view with a big red arrow on it pointing out that location to someone. You can turn on and off grid lines in this scenario, and you can also take snapshots from and save them as saved viewpoints from this location. And then when a detailer understands exactly where they are, you can click Exit Orient or a hotkey of Shift Escape, and it kicks you exactly back to where you started. So it really takes away that 30 seconds to a minute of that time that was spent of zooming out, pointing out a location, and then zooming back in to where you wanted to talk about in the first place. It seems like a small thing, but this happens over and over and over and over again in coordination meetings. So it really adds up to a massive amount of time saved as you're using Orient throughout your process. So with that, that is a very quick overview of what the three features of Sherlock are: our Distill, which is our automated clash grouping algorithm; Heat Map, which is our model analysis tool; and Orient, which is that Where Are We tool, or that Orient tool. So with that, I am going to pass this over to Pablo Medina, who is a senior VDC manager at McCarthy Building Companies, and he's going to talk a little bit about what his experience has been using Sherlock. So here, 1 second here. I will hand this over to you, Pablo.
All right, thanks, Nick, for inviting me today to talk about how we've been using the tools Sherlock has been creating, FlyPaper, I'm sorry, has been creating, and we are really excited to talk a little bit about what's going on here at McCarthy in terms of coordination and how to use these tools. So let me get to the next screen here. So McCarthy, just a quick background. We've been around for 150 years in building. So just a little bit. And during that time, we've made it a focus. Our mantra is to be the best builder in the U.S. And in order to be the best builder, we really need to understand the coordination process. Not only that, we need to take the coordination process and really make it our own. And so just a little bit about me. I've been in the AEC industry for a bit more than 10 years now. I have worked with 3 large general contractors. This is, here at McCarthy. I came over because I wanted to be with a self-performed builder. And it was really exciting to me. I came with a lot of coordination experience and had a lot of ideas of how I could make the coordination process better. So coming to McCarthy, part of the plan was to make coordinators and really make us integrated virtual builders. And that is take anyone at McCarthy and be able to introduce them to some tools. And with a little bit of training, get them involved in BIM and VDC. And so what you see before here is kind of this org chart of our SoCal, VDC org chart, and who are the main people. The managers are up here at the top. But what I want to focus on is down here below. You see a lot of red stars across these names here. And this is just in Southern California. We have, 5 major regions and I think about eight offices all across the US. But within Southern California, we had a goal to make our project staff members really those driving the model on the project sites. And this is important because I'll connect to why it's so important, is that we needed to take these group of people, these, new to construction, new engineers, or perhaps those just beginning their path, assistant project managers, and be able to give them a way to connect with the model and have them coordinate their own projects. And so although we have a lot of VDC full-time staff up here, maybe to the tune of 6 to 8 names up here, we have down here below, coordination and Navisworks capable. The red star is all the people that have run coordination before or have, led it in some way or are very strong in navigating in Navisworks. Okay. And this is really important because we could dedicate our efforts to just training our VDC staff and to be better coordinators and to master every tool. But that's not what McCarthy wants to do. We want to train and make that Navisworks model available to everybody and make coordination available to anyone on the project staff so that our coordinators, our full-time VDC staff, isn't running every coordination meeting. And that's really important because I think a lot of people, maybe even those viewing, might be in that limbo right now where do we take full-time VDC, people that have been working with BIM model or BIM and models for years, like myself, and make them the coordinators for every project and have them run clash detection and try to balance that? Or do we teach the project team to fish? Like the proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Well, I have a different proverb. Okay. If you run coordination for your team, you help them for a day. But if you train the team to run coordination and you help them you end up helping them for the rest of the project. And a little tidbit here, if you can train the team to train their project staff, you'll actually be able to go on vacation. Okay. So as a VDC manager, having come through the ranks of project engineer, project coordinator for several large and mega projects and complicated projects, then VDC engineer, now VDC manager, I have seen that if you want to get your life back, you need to give these tools, put these tools in the hands of those at the project level and not reserve all this talent and all this skill set to just those that are full-time VDC people, right? So I have a love and hate relationship with Navisworks. I love Navisworks for what it can do, but I also hate it because it is a tool that has so much that it can do. And a lot of times people get frustrated just entering into this coordination role, right? So, I mean, this is a design model version compared to, a trade model version. And you can see that things get very complicated very quick. And having a tool that will let you, dive into to this model down here below, which is the trade equivalent or the high LOD equivalent, and having someone organize themselves and find all the clashes, tag all the clash. I mean, this is something that can be daunting, especially when Navisworks, that does clash detection very well, doesn't have the easiest interface, right? And so if you look at Navisworks, it's got 8 or 9 of these menus and submenus, and then with each of those, you have 10, 15, 20 possible tools, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I teach the coordinator? What are they going to use? And when I get calls saying, hey, Pablo, we need help, we need training, I don't know where to go to find all the tools that I need, this is not my response down here below. Hey, I know this is your first time using BIM, but if you could just memorize the location and functionality of these 120 options, that is, that's how you'll figure out how Navisworks works. Good luck. I can't do that as a BIM manager, right? This is not the right answer. So we need to focus on things that coordinators do every single day. Nick was saying they spend lots of minutes, lots of time on these repetitive things, right? Finding out where you are, grouping clashes. Those are the things that I want to focus and key in on when I train my team, right? And how do we avoid leaving a bad taste in people's mouths for BIM? You don't want them to end up being, the Navis monkey, as we call him, just a guy that sits there and groups clashes all day long and can spend a third of his time doing that. And it is a kind of a horror story. People who have not had these tools to help them, like the tools that Nick and his team are putting out there, like Sherlock, FlyPaper, they end up hating coordination and never want to do it again because they spend so much of their time just grouping clashes and going through those repetitive workflows, or in a coordination meeting spending, a quarter of their time telling people where they are in the meeting, right? So we want to remove that, and we couldn't really find a tool before Sherlock. We didn't really have a good way of doing that. We just said, hey, it'll become second nature. You'll eventually figure out where all the stuff is in Navisworks, right? But I want to talk to you about how we've changed gears and in order to enable this entire force, the staff that you saw earlier, with all those red stars, those 20 or 30 names of people that can, confidently navigate and coordinate a project. Well, this is one of them. This is our Aperture project. It's in Dalmore. It's various phases. We've got the first 2 phases going. These first 2 large buildings, mixed use, going to be a great project. And we have kind of a new engineer, a new MEP engineer. He just came up from kind of a field engineer, and this was Nick's second project, in which he was going to run coordination for this project. And so we taught Nick Navisworks the basics of flying through, how the clash detector worked, but we also trained him in how to use FlyPaper and all the tools that FlyPaper and Sherlock have. And this is what the project looks like, currently. And we asked Nick, after finishing coordinating, these buildings, how did it go? What were the lessons learned? What did you like about the process? And he sent us back a 2-page, response. But I singled out really 2 big things here that he said. One, Sherlock is your best friend for finding clashes. Proco coordination is another one for solving them. So if we combine those 2 together, Sherlock is great at finding, but then we also need a way to filter, organize, tag, and assign, right? So we have that second part that is this. We have another tool for. And also Sherlock groups clashes together so that they may be solved more easily. This will cut the amount of time weeding through clashes in half. These are his own words. He had been on another project in which he saw coordination take place and had helped, and this was his own project where he was running coordination on now. And so he was able to find that value and be able to say, and I have to agree with him, I think we cut down about half the time of weeding through clashes with this tool. We're very happy with it, and we have several licenses going on right now throughout our project team members. And I want to avoid leaving that bad taste in our engineers' mouths or a BIM, and I want to make sure that this list grows in our region. Let me get back here, so that we have double or triple this. And I can't do that if I expect people to go through and learn the 120 tools that Navisworks has. And that's where, Nick, what you and your team have created has been a great benefit for us.
Awesome. Sorry, I was on mute for a second there. Yeah, thank you, Pablo. I'm really happy that you and your team has all been able to derive so much value from using Sherlock. Yeah, it's really cool to hear how McCarthy is doing coordination and how Sherlock is helping out in that regard. So, thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, let's switch back here to my screen. All right, so from there, we're going to move on to a discussion about our roadmap for Sherlock. And this is kind of broken down into 4 buckets, I guess you could say. The first being batch functionality, the second being reporting, the third is what are we doing about BIM 360 Coordinate now exists. What are we going to do in that type of sphere? As some people are starting to adopt that rather than using Navisworks. And the fourth bucket is just our what are we doing to modify or update our core features of Distill, Heat Map, and Orient. So we'll start with batch functionality. These are both things that have been requested by customers. Really, a lot of what dictates our roadmap are things that our customers have come to us and asked if we could do or implement within Navisworks or make better within our features. So the 2 pieces of batch functionality that we will be implementing is the first is a batch clash group renaming. And the purpose behind this is a lot of people, if they don't have as Pablo was talking about, using like a Procore clash management piece to be able to tag your clashes and things like that. If you don't have that outside system, which a lot of people don't, they're still just using Navisworks for it. A lot of people will end up just naming their clashes in a very specific way to be able to assign them to people, to tag them as areas or rooms or things like that. So we're developing a very simple and fast, easy to use way for you to batch add prefixes or suffixes to a bunch of different groups all at one point in time. So if you needed to assign all your groups and you like to put that in the group name, you could select all those groups that you want to be assigned to a contractor and then easily inject that assignment into the clash group name. The second piece of batch functionality that we are working on is a way to automate exporting a bunch of different selection or search sets to FBX models. Now, this is something that came up to us from a coordinator that was doing 4D, where they needed to be able to export a lot of small portions of a full coordination model so that they were able to take those models, put them into their 4D scheduling software, and then tie them to scheduling activities so that they could hide and show them as they pleased. Now, this particular coordinator was exporting somewhere along the lines of 30 different selection sets every single week because they would get model updates from the design team, and they would need to make sure that each one of those little tiny models that he was exporting was updated with the latest information. So we have been developing a kind of an automation for that, where you're able to just select all of the search sets that you would want to isolate and then export. And then our tool will take care of the rest. So you don't have to take all of the time of selecting a selection set, hiding off, isolating it, clicking FBX export, and then moving on. And then doing that process over and over again, which could take hours depending on however many selection sets that you need to export. So now it's a one quick button push. You can allow Sherlock to continue on and export all those models. You can open up another version of Navisworks and you can go about your day while all of that is happening. Or you can go and get yourself a cup of coffee, as this batch logo is kind of referencing here. So the second group of roadmap features that we have is reporting. So we've heard from a lot of coordinators that they would like some way to be able to track their progress throughout coordination. Some people use Excel, some people use various other applications for this. So we're in the process of developing a way for you to be able to essentially snapshot your clashes at any point in time. So it would make sense to snapshot your clashes after each coordination session, so that it essentially will save all the information about how many clashes you have in each test, what trades they're with, who they're assigned to, things like that. And then, because of those different snapshots in time of all of those clash numbers, we'll be able to provide really useful statistics to a coordinator. So you can see how you're trending in a specific clash test across the entire model. How a specific coordinator or a specific detail or a trade is performing, if that trade is adding more clashes than they're resolving, or anything like that. So that clash tracking feature is really, we see it as a really good way for you to get some real insights into how is coordination really going in your day-to-day coordination efforts. And then the second part of reporting is a way to mass export a list of all of the viewpoints for all of your clash groups, including the Orient floor plan, which I showed earlier, and an Orient 3D view with an arrow on it as well. A lot of coordinators have asked for that ability so that they can kind of publish all the viewpoints of each group to saved viewpoints, but while also maintaining that really valuable navigation aspect of the Orient floor plans as well in there, so that when you publish out an NWD from Navisworks, give it to a bunch of detailers, they can just click on those snapshots really quickly and understand exactly where they are in the model at all times. So it's essentially a way for them to be able to use Orient without actually having Orient installed on their computer. And then the third bucket of our roadmap features is Vim 360 Coordinate. So very recently, Autodesk has opened up some APIs that allow us to begin to work with the Clash API that Vim 360 Coordinate has. This kind of opens up a new realm for us. It allows us to be able to build on top of what Vim 360 Coordinate can do, which is a fairly rudimentary coordination tool at this point in time. In the near term, we believe we'll be adding the Distill, Heat Map, and Orient features to Vim 360 Coordinate. And then we have heard from a lot of our customers that they're not really excited about switching to Vim 360 Coordinate because of the fact that it does lack a lot of what Navisworks can do. And Navisworks can do a lot. We're not saying that we're going to be trying to implement Navisworks in Vim 360 Coordinate, but there are some specific things that people have brought up to us that they would like to see inside of Vim 360 Coordinate. those things, if they're not things that Autodesk is planning on doing, then there might be an opportunity there for us to add to that functionality as well. And then last but not least, we have some specific things that we want to do to our core features, our distill, heat map, and orient features. These are all things that have come up from customers. For distill, we recently, well, in the past year or so, we allowed the ability to kind of add a custom group name template to distill, so that you can kind of add some more information to your group names rather than them just being named group and then the number. We want to expand on that, because one of the biggest things that people have asked since then is, I want to add the area name to the group. And what that means is, it might not mean a room number, which we could get from Revit exports, but it might be any arbitrary area model that a coordinator wants to produce. So we can work with we can identify a model that a coordinator wants to use as area names, and then we'll be able to provide the ability for those area names to be included within those clash group names. A second feature that recently came up was, currently with Distill, with its algorithm, when it reruns and when you get model updates, it determines if individual clashes that showed up recently should be inserted into existing groups. And when it does that, it puts in a nice little comment on that clash group, or on that clash, that says, hey, this was inserted into this group on this day by Sherlock. We originally did that because we wanted to make sure that people were aware that those clashes were when they were inserted into those groups. So when you came back and some of your groups changed a little bit because some new clashes got pushed in there, we wanted you to be aware that is the reason that happened. But some coordinators like to use the commenting features of Navisworks, and they don't like seeing all of those comments in there about inserted clashes. So we will be adding a setting to Distill for you to be able to kind of turn on or off those comments. For heat map, we've written here that you're going to be able to customize what the publish button does. This is one of the most asked for features. It's because the publish button does a fair amount all at one time right now. So right now it produces a saved viewpoint of the floor plan of that heat map. It creates clash tests that includes all of the clashes that were in each one of those hotspots, so that you can review those hotspots all in one place rather than kind of going between all of the different clash tests that they were in. And then the third thing it does is it tags the clashes within each one of your clash tests with the hotspot number that they were associated with. And that's just so that as detailers are looking through their clash tests, they're able to identify which hotspot those clashes were in. Now, because it does all of those things all at once, and you currently don't have the ability to say, no, I only want it to produce the heat map floor plan, that's all I need. Some people won't use heat map or use the publish feature because they really only want one or two or what have you of those features to be done. So we're going to enable the ability for you to be able to kind of pick and choose what that publish button is going to do for you, depending on your situation. And then the final piece is within Orient, we're going to be adding a quick toggle for showing all of those hidden models that Orient automatically hides off. So currently, when you right-click on a model item and you hit Show in Plan, it will only show that model to you. And that was to be able to make it much more simple for, say, if the ductwork detailer asks where we are, you right-click on a piece of ductwork, it only shows the ductwork because they're able to pick that location out really fast. But sometimes you really just want to see where you are in the building. So what we're going to add is when you're in that floor plan view of Orient, you'll be able to have a quick toggle that will toggle all the models back on for you. And I think that pretty much takes us through what our near-term roadmap looks like for Sherlock. Which brings us to our question and answer section. I don't know, Andrew, if you want to jump in here. Are there any questions that anybody has added? And well, I'll say again too, if you've got any questions and you're attending right now, feel free to throw those questions in the chat or the question section of GoToWebinar.
Perfect. Yeah. Hey there, Nick. So yeah, we got a couple questions in so far. Our first one that we have in is how is your reporting / clash tracking going to be different from a Power BI dashboard?
Sure. So that is something that a lot of people will use. They'll either use Excel to track clashes or a program, or they might use Excel and then feed that into a Power BI dashboard to be able to visualize some of the differences there, or the way that things are trending. The biggest difference is that there's not going to be all that time spent of trying to document, how many clashes did I have in each one of these clash tests. So we're going to be doing all of that ourselves. So when you click that kind of snapshot button, it's going to save off all the information about the current state of the clashes for you automatically. And then we'll be able to provide you with a quick dashboard of that will show you some of the statistics that you would want to see for you to track your clashes. That being said, Power BI and tools like that are great because they allow you to see exactly the statistic that you want to see, because everybody likes to see things in different ways. So what we plan on doing is allowing you to export all of the information that we've saved from each one of those snapshots, so that you can feed it into whatever type of visualization that you would want to. So I would say the biggest difference is that we're kind of automating all of the documentation portion of keeping track of the state of your model as you go through coordination.
Awesome. Okay. And if anyone has any clarifications, questions as well, feel free to throw those in the chat. And we're still taking new questions as we go. But I have another one here for you. So what is the best way for me to get in touch about suggesting a feature for Sherlock?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few different ways. One, there is a light bulb icon within Navisworks that is right there just for you to use for providing feedback. So you can use that for anything. You can use that for feature requests. You can use that for support things. Those go directly to pretty much our whole team as soon as you hit send. So we kind of monitor things that are coming from Sherlock in that way. That's one of the best ways to get that information to us. The other way is, I think I mentioned it during the keynote, we do have that Discord community now. And that is where Dan and I both keep Discord open almost all day long. So if you've got a quick question or something like that and you want to pose it to us, and we can go back and forth in a chat-like manner, that Discord is also a great place for you to go.
Cool, that's awesome. And we just have a new question in too. So would the detailers be able to access the dashboard without having a Sherlock license?
Yeah. So what we're planning on doing there is they're not going to be able to view the live dashboard, but they will be able. We'll provide the functionality of printing a PDF report of where the statistics are and things like that. So there'll be an easy way for you to provide documentation of that dashboard at any point in time.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Cool. Then we'll move on to our next one over here. So when do you think Sherlock will be available for BIM 360 coordination?
Yeah, so That's a little bit of a tough one for us to gauge at this period of time because, like I said, they did just recently open up those APIs for clash management. So we're still kind of investigating and making sure that we're going to be able to, with what they've allowed us to do, that we're going to be able to add the functionality we want to add in the way that you're all accustomed to. But it is something that we're actively investigating, thinking somewhere around like springtime of this next year.
Awesome. And we just got another question asking about the Discord link. We'll actually be sending out an email with a link to all of the things mentioned in this talk. So for the blog and Discord and all of our social media channels, after the webinar is finished. So you all of those will get you. We'll have them in your inboxes in a couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all of those different ways that I had mentioned before of getting a hold of us and talking to us, we'll send all of those kind of links and things to everyone. So you'll have it.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that's all the questions I see have coming up now. If anyone else has any last ones they want to shoot in, feel free to do that. But yeah, that appears to be what people are thinking about.
Perfect. Well, I'll just take this opportunity to thank everybody for attending this session, and